One of the issues that people have with Monster Hunter Wilds is the general how do you put it? I don't want to say friction, because that can mean a lot of different things, right? Like how do you define friction? Because some people just define it as, oh, the game is fighting back against you. What does it really mean to have friction in a video game? I personally kind of feel like boiling it down to the game fighting against you is. It's a little reductive for conversation. Because a game can fight against you in a good way. Like for example, I would say Dark Souls 1 is a good example. And also an example of like bad ways that the game fights against you. A good way? That Dark Souls 1, kind of like fights against the player, is actually the environment. You know, for the most part anyway. Another part of area design is the enemy placements. And trust me, the enemy placements can get really mean in some areas. Actually, speaking of, there's one particular spot in the depths that I hate. And that's the spot with like that 5,000 basilisks. You guys know what I'm talking about, right? Because curse is a very annoying status effect. And oftentimes I forget to get items to deal with curse. So if I get cursed, I am hurting for a while. So I think that's an example of bad friction. Curse in Dark Souls 1, in my opinion anyway, is incredibly mean. For no good reason. It's not so much the fact that it instant kills you, but it's everything that comes after. Friction being there doesn't automatically mean it's good. In my eyes. Because sometimes it can just be really unfair. So where does this lead? Monster Hunter when it comes to friction. I'm going to say something that's going to blow everyone's minds, okay? Monster Hunter is not that hard of a game. I think the difficulty with Monster Hunter, there's just too many factors to judge the difficulty of Monster Hunter. I played through Monster Hunter 3 Ultimate last year. At least the low rank, and I do want to go back to that game eventually. In Monster Hunter 3, Ultimate is not that hard. Was it difficult when I first played it and it was my first Monster Hunter ever? Absolutely. Like it was so difficult. But I'm older now. And I've played through a lot of these games. By this point, it's sort of like with Kingdom Hearts 2. You guys know D-Mix, right? The boss that has the silly guitar and he says dance, water dance. As a kid, that's like the hardest thing ever. Like he's just an extremely difficult fight. Same with some other organization members. But I'm sure if you guys have seen my recent playthrough of Kingdom Hearts 2, I wiped floor with him. Because I knew what I was doing. I had played through that game thousands of times. It's not really a challenge for me anymore. So low rank 4. Monster Hunter 3 Ultimate isn't really that hard. It's really not. It was only hard because I was new to the series and I was a kid. Is that to say there's no friction in Monster Hunter 3 Ultimate? No, there absolutely is. It mainly comes from the grinding and underwater combat. But mainly the grinding. Monster Hunter 3 Ultimate is, in my opinion, a little stingy when it comes to the rewards. So sometimes it can actually take a while to get like one specific part that you need. It could also just be desire sensor. Friction can mean a lot of things. And I don't think, like just summing it up as, oh, the game fighting against you is productive. Because like I said, there's good friction and there's bad friction. And I haven't really given many examples of good friction. But I would say, good friction. He's playing gun lance. That might not make obvious sense right now, and it probably won't if you never played this weapon. But you have to move very purposefully. Your positioning matters a lot more with gun lance than it does with sowing shield in my opinion. Blaming the game is always productive. I mean, sure, because games are designed the way that they are for a reason. Anyway, gun lance. With gun lance, I have to play it very differently. Whenever I play with charge blade or sword and shield, there are different thoughts running through my head. Those are generally faster weapons. With gun lance, majority of my attacks are straight. I am poking a lot. I am not doing a lot of wide sweeps. Unless I do the swing combo. So I think that's actually an example of good friction. Because I'm having to change my mode of thought. I am playing the weapon on its terms. And I'm having to work with it, you know? Because the weapon was designed in a very purposeful way. And whenever I make a mistake with this weapon, it is entirely my fault, right? Like if I do something wrong. It's because I was being an idiot. Like there are so many times where I should have been sheathing my weapon. Instead of slowly walking towards the target. There are probably a lot of opportunities where I should have been reloading. Instead of doing whatever it was I was doing at the moment. So you could probably consider that. Like me. Trying to find my voice with the weapon. Where does that leave Monster Hunter Wilds? The game that supposedly has no friction. I think part of it is that a lot of people are just used to the game now. Like, they know Monster Hunter. They know how it's played. A good chunk of people already understand the game. So, starting up a new game, there's a lot of transfer skill. Of course, a good chunk of that skill cannot be, you know, brought back into older games. Especially with focus mode. Another point is that I do think there's a little too much information on Monster Hunter now. That might sound strange, but what I mean by that is, okay, for example, back when I was playing Monster Hunter 3 Ultimate, there wasn't really a lot of information on Monster Hunter 3 Ultimate. Specifically like what the best builds were. And if those did exist, then I just didn't know where to look. So in a sense, you were if you were a new player. You had a lot more room to screw up. You had a lot more room to just learn the game for yourself. And I think that's a very good thing. Like sure, guides are useful. And I think the best guides for Monster Hunter are the ones that help you learn the basics. You know, like a weapon guide that's just like, hey, these are the things that the weapon can do. Certain combos can flow easily into each other or the different shelling types do different things. You know, that's just like general advice. Nowadays you have more like, how can I put this? There's a lot more of the game being solved. Like for Monster Hunter Wilds. Put on Agitator. What was the other one? What was the other skill that like everyone suggests you use? He was Agitator and something else. I don't remember, but I remember Agitator is the big one. I think it was Weakness Exploit. Yes, it was Weakness Exploit. It was Maximum Agitator, Maximum Weakness Exploit. At least one level of burst or flare. You wish the How to Be OP in 10 minutes videos weren't out right when the game comes out. You see, that's kind of what I mean. There's not really any discovery. And I think that's part of why it feels like there's not any friction anymore. Now, am I saying that Agitator is not a good skill? No, absolutely is. In fact, it's probably the best skill in Wilds and World. What I'm saying is people should figure that out for themselves, you know? So yeah, maybe there is a loss of friction in the actual game, with material gathering being really easy. I do also think there's a loss of friction because of how much information is out there now. Like it is so easy to figure out like, what's the best build for hammer? What's this monster's weakness? So on and so forth. And I know I'm guilty of looking up that information. My only defense is that I've played through these games before. Yeah, I know the farms produce a lot of materials, but they kind of do in every game. Like no matter the Monster Hunter game. Arms will always be broken. Or their own individual reasons. The farm in, I think it was Freedom Unite. That was also pretty broken, wasn't it? I never actually got far enough to really use the farm. But just like as an example, how many games had farms? I think it started with Freedom Unite. Again, you can correct me if I'm wrong. But yet farms were kind of always broken. I would say the farm in 3 Ultimate was the least broken. That's because you needed the item you wanted to cultivate before you could actually start farming it. So that's a bit of an equalizer. So all that said, does any of that really affect my enjoyment of Monster Hunter Wilds or even Monster Hunter Rise for that matter? Not really. Like it's still Monster Hunter at the end of the day, and in my personal opinion, there's no such thing as a bad Monster Hunter game. Okay, I think I've been talking too much. I need to actually focus on the hunt. I'm very passionate about Monster Hunter if you guys can't tell. Word of the day is friction. Exactly. It's a funny word. Maybe.